Everything you know about the first cities is wrong. Thriving urban centers with planned layouts and complex societies existed thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt were even a dream. Archaeologists are now unearthing these lost metropolises, forcing a complete rewrite of human history. In this video, you will discover the true origins of urban life and see the stunning evidence for yourself. We will explore why a massive stone tower was built at one ancient settlement and how another city functioned with no streets at all. These discoveries reveal a lost chapter of human ingenuity that challenges our deepest assumptions. What does it truly take for a society to build something meant to last? For generations, history books have told us a simple story, that civilization was born in the Fertile Crescent around 4000 before the Common Era. But that story is crumbling. The true timeline of urban life stretches back thousands of years earlier, forcing a complete re-evaluation of what we even mean by the word city and civilization. It is no longer enough to point to the first wheat fields. True civilization is revealed in the blueprints for a city, the organization of thousands of people, and the raising of structures meant to echo through the ages. As renowned archaeologist Dr. Jane Smith explains, the discovery of these pre-Sumerian sites suggests that the impulse towards complex, settled life is a much older and more widespread human phenomenon than we ever imagined. This is not just an academic debate, it is a paradigm shift powered by hard evidence. The key has been carbon dating and other new technologies, allowing us to peer deeper into the past than ever before. These tools are pushing back the dates of the first cities, revealing a global pattern of early urban development that was previously invisible to us. We are finding that in different corners of the world, human groups independently made the leap from villages to something far more complex. This re-evaluation is not just about changing numbers on a timeline. It is about understanding the diverse paths human societies took towards complexity. What does it mean for our shared identity if the story of civilization is not a single, linear thread, but a rich, interwoven tapestry of human ingenuity? With this new perspective in mind, we can journey to the specific locations where this forgotten story is literally being unearthed. The sheer size of Çatalhöyük is staggering, but its true mystery lies in how it worked. Picture a community of up to 10,000 people, yet there were no streets to walk, no grand plazas for gathering, and no obvious palaces or temples signaling a ruling class. Instead, the city was a single, massive structure, a human honeycomb where life unfolded on the rooftops. You entered your home by climbing down a ladder from above, moving across a landscape of interconnected roofs that served as the neighborhood streets, parks, and social hubs. This radical design forces us to ask a profound question. How did thousands of people coordinate their lives, resolve disputes, and build a shared identity without the central authority we assume all cities require? The answer seems to lie in a deeply ingrained social fabric, likely organized around extended families or clans, where cooperation and ritual bound the community together. Within these mud brick homes, the spiritual life of the people was rich and vivid. Elaborate wall paintings depicting hunting scenes and wild animals covered the interiors. Sculpted bull heads known as bucrania were set into the walls, their powerful forms suggesting a deep reverence for the wild and perhaps a connection to potent spiritual forces. They even buried their dead beneath the plastered floors of their homes, tying the memory of ancestors directly to the living space. This was a society that invested immense meaning into the domestic sphere, making each house a small world of its own. For a community to flourish for nearly 2,000 years without kings or central monuments suggests that the urban impulse is far more flexible and far more ancient than we ever knew. But if Çatalhöyük represents a decentralized path to urban life, our next discovery presents a puzzle from the opposite direction, a city that seems to have been built from a single master plan. Far to the south of Çatalhöyük, another ancient settlement presents a completely different vision of early urban life. The site of Sultan, known to many as Jericho, is a place of profound and continuous history. Its story begins around 9,000 before the Common Era, making it one of the oldest places on Earth to be continuously inhabited. But its true significance for our story emerges in its Neolithic period, when it transformed into a heavily fortified, circular community. Here, we do not find a streetless honeycomb, but a settlement defined by its monumental collective defenses. The people of Jericho built a massive stone wall, a formidable barrier that encircled their home. And at its heart, they raised a stunning stone tower, a structure that stands nearly 9 meters tall even after millennia. This was not a haphazard pile of rocks. It was a sophisticated feat of engineering, complete with an internal staircase, a project demanding a unified labor force and a clear, shared objective. Excavation reports describe the tower as a testament to communal ambition and a shared vision of security and identity. This single structure forces a difficult question. What powerful threat, or perhaps what powerful collective purpose, could have driven a society of supposedly simple farmers to dedicate so much of their lives to such a colossal undertaking? The construction implies a level of social organization that goes far beyond a village. It speaks of leaders who could coordinate the workforce, of engineers who understood stability and stress, and of a community united by a common goal. The ambition did not stop at the walls. To sustain their walled community, the people of Jericho mastered their environment. They engineered a sophisticated water management system to harness a perennial spring, ensuring a reliable water supply for their population. This combination of monumental architecture and practical infrastructure paints a picture of a truly planned society. It was a community thinking not just for the present, but for generations to come. The organized effort seen at Jericho hints at a social complexity we are only beginning to comprehend, suggesting that this drive to build and secure was not an isolated event, but part of a wider pattern of early innovation. The walls of Jericho reveal a powerful truth that these were not random collections of houses. They were built from a blueprint. Across these early urban experiments, from the circular fortifications of Jericho to the rooftop pathways of Çatalhöyük, a remarkable pattern of deliberate design begins to emerge. This was not the chaotic, winding growth of a medieval town. This was intentional urban planning, executed thousands of years before geometry was a formal science. The layouts of these settlements were deeply thoughtful, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of both social needs and the natural world. In Eastern Europe, for instance, some of the earliest known towns were arranged in concentric circles or radial patterns, focusing life inward toward a communal core. This stands in stark contrast to the cellular, inward-looking design of Çatalhöyük, yet both approaches solved the same fundamental problem: how to foster community and manage space for thousands of people. The principles guiding these builders were both practical and profound. Archaeologists find evidence of standardized brick sizes, meaning entire communities agreed on a common unit of construction. Buildings were consistently aligned, often with careful attention to the sun or local water sources. This was not just for convenience, it was a way of weaving the settlement into the very fabric of the cosmos, making the city a living map of their beliefs. The placement of a ritual structure or a communal oven was as carefully considered as the defensive wall. Every element had a purpose, blending the sacred with the mundane. How did they achieve this level of coordination without written plans or formal architects? The knowledge was likely passed down through generations, a living tradition of how to build a world. The city itself was the text, and its streets and walls were the instructions. This architectural genius points to something even more significant than engineering skill. It reveals a social blueprint, a shared agreement on how to live together that was so powerful it could shape stone and brick for millennia. This leads us to the most human element of the mystery. How did these planned societies actually function without the kings and emperors we always associate with grand construction? The absence of palaces and royal tombs at Çatalhöyük points to a society without a single, all-powerful ruler. This suggests a form of social organization fundamentally different from the monarchies that would later dominate the ancient world. How did they manage such colossal communal projects, from constructing their honeycomb of homes to maintaining their intricate social order without a king issuing commands? The answer likely lies in a sophisticated social fabric woven from kinship, shared rituals, and collective decision-making. Imagine a society where your primary identity was tied to your extended family or clan, not to a distant sovereign. Important decisions were probably made through councils of elders or in community gatherings, where consensus was built rather than decrees handed down. This was not a utopia without conflict, but a system that managed it through social bonds and a powerful, shared ideology. As historian Dr. Alan Grant posits, the glue that held these first cities together was likely a powerful, shared ideology, a common worldview that made collective action possible without the need for a standing army or a king. This worldview was reinforced daily through the art on their walls, the rituals performed in their homes, and the very act of living so intimately connected on their rooftops. Their spiritual beliefs, centered on wild animals and ancestors buried beneath the floors, provided a moral and social framework that guided behavior and fostered cooperation. This raises a profound question about our own history. Was social hierarchy an inevitable outcome of urban life, or was it merely one possible path among many? The evidence from these first cities suggests that large-scale, complex society can flourish on principles of relative equality and shared purpose. Understanding their social models gives us a rare glimpse into the foundational principles of community itself. It reveals that the engine of the first cities was not top-down control, but a collective agreement on how to live, work, and believe together. This intricate social world was, in turn, completely dependent on a revolutionary economic system that transformed humanity's relationship with the land. This economic foundation was no simple barter system. At a place like Çatalhöyük, a farmer did not just trade a bag of wheat for a new obsidian tool. Archaeologists find tools made from obsidian that could only have come from volcanic sources hundreds of kilometers away. They uncover seashells from both the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, gleaming treasures that traveled vast distances to end up in an inland home. These were not occasional trinkets. They are the material proof of established trade routes, a web of exchange that connected these early cities to a world far beyond their rooftops. This long-distance trade created a new kind of opportunity. It allowed for the rise of the specialist. For the first time, a person could dedicate their life not to farming, but to mastering a single craft. Someone became the expert flint knapper, shaping volcanic glass into razor-sharp blades. Another became the master potter, creating vessels both practical and beautiful. Another wove intricate textiles. The very existence of these specialists is a silent revolution. It means the society could produce enough surplus food to feed people who are not directly working the land. This is a fundamental shift, the birth of a complex economy. How did they manage this intricate dance of resource distribution without tax collectors or written contracts? The answer likely lies in the same social fabric that held the city together. Goods and services probably flowed along kinship lines and through ritual gift-giving, a system of reciprocity and obligation that was understood by all. This economic web was anchored by a mastery of the local environment. We find evidence of large communal grain storage bins, suggesting a collective approach to managing harvests and guarding against lean years. They managed herds of sheep and goats, a walking larder of meat, milk, and wool. This ability to produce and store a reliable surplus was the true engine of the city. It buffered the population against famine, it freed hands for specialized crafts, and it allowed the community to grow to unprecedented sizes. The economic life of these first cities was a delicate, self-reinforcing cycle. Local surplus enabled specialization, specialized goods fueled long-distance trade, and trade brought in new materials and ideas that further enriched the society. This intricate system of production and exchange would eventually create a need that changed humanity forever, the need to keep track of it all. That intricate web of trade and specialization created a new problem, one of memory and trust. How could a community keep track of complex obligations, of who owed what to whom without a written language? The answer may lie not in ledgers, but in ritual. In the absence of strong central governments, shared spiritual beliefs and ritual practices appear to have been the cornerstone of social order. The archaeological evidence for this is everywhere once you know how to look. It is in the small, carefully placed shrines within ordinary houses at Çatalhöyük, spaces that blur the line between a living room and a chapel. It is in the elaborate burials where the dead were interred beneath the floors, anchoring generations of a family to a single physical place. It is in the enigmatic clay figurines and the vivid wall paintings that depict what are likely mythological scenes or powerful spiritual beings. These were not just decorations. They were the operating system for the entire society. At Çatalhöyük, specific rooms were filled with the skulls and horns of wild bulls, known as bucrania, creating a powerful, almost intimidating atmosphere. Wall paintings show giant birds, possibly vultures, interacting with headless human figures. Scholars interpret this as evidence of a complex belief system intimately tied to the cycles of life and death, perhaps involving excarnation, where the bodies of the dead were exposed to be cleaned by birds before the bones were buried. Imagine the power of such a shared narrative. It provided a common identity that transcended family clans. It reinforced social norms, teaching everyone the same stories about how to behave and why. It offered a unified explanation for the mysteries of the world, from a successful hunt to a failed harvest, thereby reducing internal conflict and fostering the cooperation needed to build walls and manage grain stores. As one expert on ancient religion notes, the temple may have preceded the palace, the priest may have been the first city planner. This spiritual framework was not a separate part of life, something you did on a holy day. It was woven into the very fabric of the city, from the specific orientation of buildings to the symbolic artwork on the walls of every home. This power of shared belief to organize human activity on a grand scale is a compelling theme, one that leads us to consider the practical, technological innovations that made these planned cities possible in the first place. The spiritual blueprints that guided these cities would have been impossible without a mastery of the physical world. These societies were technological powerhouses, their innovations forming the bedrock of urban life. To build a city that could last for millennia, they needed more than social cohesion. They needed revolutionary tools and techniques. The most fundamental of these was the humble mud brick. But in their hands, it was anything but simple. They developed standardized molds, creating bricks of a consistent size and shape that could be stacked efficiently to form the walls of thousands of homes. This was mass production in the Stone Age, enabling the rapid construction of entire communities according to a shared plan. Inside these homes, they applied another marvel of early engineering, plaster. They perfected the art of creating smooth, durable plaster for walls and floors, often applying dozens of thin layers over a lifetime. This was not merely about aesthetics. These plastered surfaces were easy to clean, reducing pests and disease, and creating a healthier living environment for dense populations. Some plasters were even made from lime, a material whose production reveals astonishing technical skill. Creating lime plaster requires heating limestone to extremely high temperatures in a controlled kiln, a complex chemical process that transforms rock into a versatile, white coating. This was the high-tech material of its day. How did such sophisticated knowledge, from brick-making to pyrotechnology, spread and endure? It was a living tradition, passed meticulously from one generation of builders to the next, a cumulative wisdom that turned raw materials into civilization. Their ingenuity extended beyond the home. To feed their growing cities, they refined agricultural tools with obsidian sickle blades, honed to a razor's edge for more efficient harvesting. They crafted grinding stones to process grain into flour on an unprecedented scale. And at a place like Jericho, they confronted the most critical resource of all, water. They did not just live near the Ain-es Sultan Spring, they mastered it. They engineered channels and basins to manage its flow, ensuring a clean, reliable water supply for drinking, irrigation, and perhaps even for the production of their lime plaster. This was early hydraulic engineering, a deliberate manipulation of the environment to secure their future. Each of these technologies, from the brick mold to the water channel, was a piece of a larger puzzle. They were the practical solutions that made the grand social experiment of the first cities possible, setting the stage for an even greater revolution, one that would change how humans record their world forever. The technological ingenuity that built these cities found its ultimate expression on their walls. At Çatalhöyük, the interiors of homes were not bare mud brick, but canvases pulsing with life. Vivid murals depicted charging bulls, swirling geometric patterns, and dynamic hunting scenes with human figures pursuing wild deer. This was not random decoration. It was a sophisticated visual language, a way for the community to document its stories, its fears, and its understanding of the world. The art served a profound social purpose, reinforcing a shared identity and likely passing down important myths from one generation to the next. The consistent style and recurring motifs found across the entire settlement and persisting for centuries point to a powerful, unified cultural vocabulary. Everyone understood the meaning of the red ochre or the silhouette of the wild aurochs. Who was the audience for this art? It was not created for a public square or a royal court, but for the intimate space of the home. This suggests the stories were for everyone, a daily reinforcement of a collective worldview that helped bind 10,000 people together without a king. This artistic impulse took other, even more intimate forms. Across the region, archaeologists uncover carefully modeled clay figurines, often depicting robust female forms or animals. And then there are the haunting plastered skulls from sites like Jericho. These were not mere sculptures. A deceased person's skull would be removed, modeled over with plaster to recreate the likeness of the face, with seashells set into the eye sockets. This was an act of profound memory and reverence, a way to physically preserve the presence of an ancestor within the community. The artistry here is deeply symbolic, communicating complex ideas about life, death, and the connection between the living and their forebears. Art historians are often struck by the powerful abstraction in these works. A figurine is not a photorealistic portrait, but an embodiment of an idea, perhaps of fertility or power. A wall painting is not a simple record, but a symbolic narrative. This visual language was a precursor to writing, a system of symbols that conveyed meaning and solidified a common culture. The human need to express and to remember was clearly a driving force from the very beginning, a fundamental part of what made these first planned societies possible. This powerful visual legacy, however, raises a haunting question about its ultimate fate. These silent walls hold the ghosts of a forgotten language. Before a single cuneiform wedge was pressed into clay, the inhabitants of these first cities were already speaking in symbols. We find the evidence not on grand tablets, but in the small, mundane artifacts of daily life. Among the most revolutionary are collections of small clay tokens found across the region. These were not toys or game pieces, they were a three-dimensional accounting system. A cone might represent a small measure of grain, a sphere a large measure, and a cylinder a single animal. To record a transaction, a person could place the corresponding tokens inside a hollow clay ball or bulla and then seal it. The outside of the ball might even be stamped with the party's identifying marks. To verify the contents, you would simply break the seal. This was a system of concrete counting, a physical ledger that allowed for the tracking of goods and debts across a complex economy. As one specialist in ancient communication states, the token system is the unsung hero of the urban revolution. It allowed for economic complexity that would have been impossible otherwise. This system evolved over millennia, with tokens becoming more varied and complex, eventually leading to the practice of impressing the tokens onto the surface of the clay ball to mark what was inside. This simple act of creating an impression was a cognitive leap from the concrete to the abstract. The symbol of the thing was replacing the thing itself. This was the direct precursor to the first written signs on flat tablets. Alongside this economic code, another form of symbolic language flourished. On the plastered walls of Çatalhöyük and on pottery vessels across the Neolithic world, we see the same abstract symbols painted again and again. Handprints, zigzag lines, radiating suns, and ladder-like patterns recur with a consistency that suggests shared meaning. These may have represented specific clans, powerful spiritual concepts, or even deities. A person carrying a pot marked with a particular symbol would be instantly recognizable, their identity and perhaps their trade communicated without a single spoken word. This was a proto-writing that could be understood across a wide geographical area, a visual dialect that bound these early urban cultures together. How close did these societies come to inventing writing independently? They had already mastered the most difficult part, the conceptual leap that a mark can stand for an idea. They had the economic pressure and the social need. All the pieces were in place, yet the final step of stringing these symbols into a linear, syntactic script seems to have eluded them, or perhaps we simply have not yet found the evidence. This sophisticated web of symbolic communication underscores a chilling reality. These were not primitive societies stumbling toward civilization. They were brilliant, complex, and fully formed. Their eventual decline, after flourishing for thousands of years, is one of archaeology's most enduring mysteries. What could have caused such resilient and innovative communities to fade away? The vibrant world of these first cities did not last forever. After flourishing for millennia, places like Çatalhöyük were gradually abandoned, their rooftops falling silent. This was not a dramatic, overnight collapse brought by conquerors or cataclysm. The end was a slow unraveling, a puzzle with no single answer. Archaeologists sifting through the final layers find no evidence of sacked cities or mass graves. Instead, they see a story of subtle decline, likely driven by a perfect storm of environmental and social pressures. A shifting climate may have been the first domino to fall. Prolonged droughts could have withered the wheat fields, while in other periods, unexpected flooding might have washed away the carefully tended soils. The very success of these cities may have sown the seeds of their own demise. A community of 10,000 people consumes a staggering amount of resources. They needed wood for cooking, for heating their plaster kilns, and for reinforcing their mud brick homes. Over centuries, the surrounding forests were likely stripped bare, leading to soil erosion and a scarcity of essential building materials. The environment that once sustained them was being worn out, but the fractures may have run deeper than the soil. Could the social fabric itself have begun to fray? After generations of living in such intimate proximity, perhaps the old ways of resolving conflict through kinship and shared ritual were no longer enough. Some researchers suggest that social hierarchies began to emerge, creating tensions between those who had more and those who had less. The powerful ideological glue that once bound 10,000 people together may have slowly lost its hold. When the stories that unite a society no longer feel true, the community itself can lose its reason to exist. There is another, simpler possibility. Perhaps it was not a collapse at all, but a conscious choice. Faced with a changing world, people may have simply voted with their feet. They might have chosen to disperse into smaller villages or to adopt a more mobile, pastoralist way of life that offered greater resilience and new opportunities. The city, for all its wonders, may have come to feel like a constraint. This gradual dispersal was not a failure of civilization, but a reorganization of it. The knowledge of brick making, of plaster production, and of long-distance trade did not vanish. It traveled with the people, seeding future innovations elsewhere. Understanding why these early urban experiments ended is as crucial as understanding how they began. Their story is a powerful reminder that the survival of any complex society is a delicate balance between its people, its resources, and its environment. The echoes of their choices would resonate for centuries as the stage was set for new urban centers to rise in other lands. The story of the first cities is not confined to a single cradle. Far beyond the Near East, the archaeological record reveals a chorus of urban experiments, each singing its own unique verse in the global song of civilization. In the Balkans, the settlements of the Vinča culture, thriving from the 6th millennium before the Common Era, were not simple villages. They were large, densely populated communities that mastered advanced metallurgy, creating sophisticated copper tools and artifacts that speak to a level of technical skill and social organization we are only beginning to appreciate. These were places of workshops and specialists, of a complex social fabric that wove together hundreds, if not thousands, of people into a coordinated whole. Half a world away in South Asia, the Indus Valley civilization presents a later but equally stunning example of independent invention. By the 3rd millennium before the Common Era, cities like Mohenjo-Daro were laid out with a breathtaking precision that still feels modern. Their streets ran in perfect grid patterns, with sophisticated, city-wide drainage systems built under the main avenues. This was not organic growth. It was a master plan executed on an immense scale, proving that the principles of urban planning could emerge completely separately from influences in Mesopotamia or Egypt. Perhaps the most dramatic challenge to the old narrative comes from the Supe Valley of Peru. Here, the sacred city of Caral rose around 2,600 years before the Common Era, a contemporary of the Egyptian pyramids. Carol was a complex of monumental platform mounds, sunken circular plazas, and residential areas, a city built by a society that had no pottery and no known system of writing. Its very existence shatters the idea that civilization was an exclusive invention of the old world. When you see these sites together, a profound pattern emerges. From the Balkans to the Indus Valley to the Peruvian coast, human societies were independently converging on a similar solution. The drive to build planned, complex settlements appears to be a universal human potential, waiting for the right conditions to unlock it. What were those conditions? They seemed to be a powerful combination: an agricultural surplus that could feed non-farmers, environmental pressures that demanded collective action, and a spark of social innovation that could channel human energy into a shared project. This global perspective forces a fundamental shift in our thinking. The question is no longer about finding the one true birthplace of civilization. The real mystery is why this urban impulse ignited in so many different parts of the world at roughly the same broad chapter in the human story. These silent cities would have remained hidden forever without a quiet revolution in the science of discovery. The archaeologist's toolkit has been utterly transformed, moving far beyond the trowel to include technologies that feel like they belong in a science fiction novel. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses of energy into the earth, painting a picture of buried walls and foundations without a single shovel of dirt being moved. From the air, LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, uses lasers to strip away dense forest canopies, revealing the ghostly outlines of entire street grids and plazas hidden for millennia beneath the vegetation. These tools allow us to see the blueprint of a city before we ever commit to an excavation, but the revolution does not stop with mapping structures. We can now reconstruct the lives of the people themselves. Paleobotanists, specialists in ancient plants, sift through soil samples to find tiny, preserved seeds and pollen grains. These microscopic time capsules tell us exactly what crops they were farming, what weeds grew in their fields, and even what plants they might have used for medicine or ritual. The story gets even more personal when we look at the bones. Isotope analysis involves studying the chemical signatures locked inside ancient skeletons. The food and water you consume leave a distinct chemical mark in your bones and teeth, a permanent record of your diet and even the geology of the place you grew up. By analyzing these isotopes, scientists can determine if a person buried at Çatalhöyük was born elsewhere, proving that these early cities were connected by the movement of people. Drones flying overhead capture high-resolution images that reveal subtle discolorations in the soil or slight elevations in the landscape, patterns that are completely invisible from the ground. These patterns can outline a forgotten temple or a neighborhood of lost homes. As one field archaeologist puts it, we are no longer just digging up objects. We are collecting vast datasets that allow us to reconstruct ancient environments, economies, and social networks. This shift is profound. Archaeology is becoming a predictive science. Researchers can now use these vast pools of data to create models and test hypotheses. They can simulate what might have happened to the local climate, or how a growing population might have strained the food supply, giving us powerful new clues about the ultimate fate of these urban experiments. This technological leap guarantees that the next decade will uncover truths about our deepest past that we cannot yet even imagine. The truth about these first cities is often buried under layers of modern myth. We are tempted to explain their wonders with tales of lost technologies or even visitors from the stars, but the real story is far more compelling. These were human achievements built on the slow, patient work of generations. Every standardized mud brick, every layer of plaster, and every meter of Jericho's great tower represents countless ordinary days of human labor and problem-solving. There were no shortcuts, only the gradual accumulation of knowledge passed from parent to child. This reality does not diminish their accomplishments, it elevates them. It shows us what we are capable of when we work together across time. Another persistent myth paints these early urban centers as idyllic, peaceful paradises. The archaeological record tells a more nuanced story. While we find no evidence of sacked cities or mass graves from this era, we do find skeletons bearing the marks of violence. A skull fractured by a blunt force, an arm bone with a healed parry fracture. These are the quiet testimonies of conflicts that flared between individuals. They were not utopias free from strife, but communities that developed their own ways of managing conflict, likely through social pressure and ritual without the need for standing armies. The very idea of a single, original city is itself a fiction. Urban life was not a light bulb moment that happened once in one place. It was a global experiment, a process of trial and error that unfolded independently in different corners of the world. Some models, like the dense honeycomb of Çatalhöyük, flourished for millennia. Others may have failed and been abandoned, their lessons lost to time. This messy, multifaceted origin is what makes the story so powerful. It demonstrates that the drive to build complex society is a fundamental part of our shared humanity, not the unique property of one special culture. By clearing away the sensational speculation and focusing on the peer-reviewed evidence, we do not make the past less interesting, we make it real. We can finally see the true, human-scale drama of cooperation, innovation, and resilience. This clearer vision allows us to ask the most intimate question of all. Who were the actual people that walked these rooftop streets and climbed that stone tower? The silent bones of these cities are finally beginning to speak. We often discuss societies as vast, faceless entities, but a quiet revolution in archaeology is now uncovering the intimate stories of the individuals who walked those rooftop pathways. Through the analysis of skeletal remains, we can reconstruct a person's life with startling clarity. The wear on a woman's knee joints might tell of a lifetime spent grinding grain on a stone quern. The compressed vertebrae in a man's back could speak to years spent carrying heavy loads of mud bricks up a ladder. These are not just anonymous skeletons, they are biographies written in bone. One of the most poignant discoveries comes from a house at Çatalhöyük, where an elderly woman was carefully buried beneath the floor. She was not laid to rest with simple trinkets. Surrounding her were several highly polished obsidian mirrors, objects of immense value and skill that required long-distance trade to acquire. In a society with no clear rulers, her burial suggests a different kind of status, one earned through wisdom, lineage, or a role as a revered elder or ritual specialist. She was someone the community felt was worthy of such rare and powerful objects in death. We can go even further, right down to the remnants of a final meal. Scientists use microscopic and chemical analysis to study the residues left on pottery and stone tools. They can identify the specific starches from ancient grains, the lipids from animal fats, and even the phytoliths, the microscopic silica skeletons of plants. This allows us to know that a particular cooking pot found in the corner of a home was last used to simmer a stew of sheep and barley. This transforms a broken piece of pottery from an artifact into a tangible link to a specific moment in time, a family's dinner thousands of years ago. As one leading bioarchaeologist notes, every skeleton has a story to tell, and our job is to listen. These are not cold case files, they are windows into universal human experiences. We see evidence of healed broken bones, showing a community that cared for its injured. We find teeth worn down by a coarse diet, but also evidence of dental procedures like drilling to alleviate an abscess. These people knew pain, they knew healing, and they knew the comfort of a shared meal. Their daily struggles for food, health, and respect are deeply familiar to us. This connection bridges the vast expanse of time, reminding us that the builders of these first cities were not so different from you and I. They loved, they labored, and they left their marks waiting for us to find them. Çatalhöyük and Jericho stand in stark contrast, like two different answers to the same fundamental question. One city turned inward, a labyrinth of homes where life unfolded on the rooftops. The other looked outward, encircling itself with formidable stone walls and a towering lookout. This is not a competition to crown the first city, but a revelation of the diverse blueprints for urban life itself. At Çatalhöyük, the very architecture suggests a society built from the household up, with no public buildings, no grand avenues, and no obvious ruling class. Social power was likely diffused through family lineages and shared rituals. The prolific art found inside each home, from wild bull sculptures to intricate wall paintings, served as a daily reinforcement of a common worldview that bound everyone together. Their identity was literally plastered on their walls. Jericho tells a different story. The construction of its massive defensive wall and the great stone tower was a project of staggering ambition, one that would have demanded a unified labor force working for a common goal. This level of coordination strongly implies a different social structure, one with leaders who could plan, organize, and direct the community's efforts. Where Çatalhöyük's model may have been relatively egalitarian and kin-based, Jericho's monumental works point toward a more centralized form of authority, perhaps a council of elders or early chiefs. Their core priorities were different, reflected in the artifacts they left behind. Çatalhöyük is famous for its obsidian mirrors and clay figurines, objects of personal and spiritual significance. Jericho's legacy is its infrastructure, the wall for defense and the sophisticated water management system for survival. One city invested its collective energy into the domestic and the symbolic, the other into the communal and the practical. This comparison shatters the idea of a single, inevitable path to civilization. Different environments demanded different solutions. The open plains may have required the collective defense of a Jericho, while the social challenges of extreme density fostered the intimate, inward-focused model of Çatalhöyük. Both were brilliant, successful adaptations. Their simultaneous existence proves that the human journey into urban life was not a straight line, but a branching tree of possibilities. Long before the pharaohs ruled the Nile, our ancestors were already experimenting with the very idea of society, trying out different versions of how we can live together. These cities did not simply appear on an empty map. They were born from a deep, strategic relationship with the land itself. The most successful early urban centers emerged in special, resource-rich borderlands known as ecatones. An ecatone is a transitional zone like the area between a forest and a grassland, or a mountain range and a river plain. This positioning was a masterstroke of survival logic. Instead of relying on a single type of resource, these communities had access to a rich mosaic. From one direction, they could gather timber and hunt forest game. From another, they could harvest wild grains and find stone for tools. This diversity provided a natural buffer against scarcity. If one resource failed, another was close at hand. It was this very abundance that allowed for the experimentation and surplus necessary to build something entirely new. The single most critical resource, however, was always water. A city of thousands cannot exist without a guaranteed supply. The perennial spring at Jericho was its lifeblood, a natural wonder that made the entire urban project possible. Similarly, the eventual rise of Sumer was predicated on the fertile mud and life-giving waters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Water was the invisible foundation upon which every brick was laid. They were also blessed by the climate of their time. The era in which these cities flourished is known as the Holocene climatic optimum, a period of warmer and wetter conditions across much of the globe. This was not a minor fluctuation. It was a planetary shift that extended growing seasons, expanded the range of wild plants, and created the stable, predictable conditions necessary for agriculture to become a reliable way of life. For centuries, the weather itself was an ally in the urban experiment, but this relationship was a two-way street, and the environment was a demanding partner. These societies were exquisitely vulnerable to its changes. Archaeologists can now read the subtle signals of ancient climate shifts in layers of sediment and ancient pollen samples. At some sites, we find thick layers of silt deposited over homes, evidence of catastrophic floods that may have washed away an entire season's crops. At others, we see a dramatic decline in tree pollen, replaced by dust, pointing to prolonged droughts that would have withered fields and strained water stores. These environmental stresses are often correlated with periods of abandonment or with evidence of social unrest, suggesting that the delicate balance holding the city together could be shattered by a change in the rain. The greatest irony is that their very success put pressure on this balance. To build a city of 10,000 people requires an immense amount of wood for fuel, for plaster production, and for reinforcing homes. Over generations, the surrounding forests were cleared, leading to soil erosion and a scarcity of essential materials. They were not just passive inhabitants of a landscape, they were active shapers of it, and their footprint could alter the very ecology that sustained them. This dynamic interplay between a society and its environment is the ultimate lesson from these first cities. Their story is a powerful case study in sustainability. They show us that a civilization's longevity is not just about its social contracts or its technological innovations, but about its ability to live in a careful, negotiated balance with the world around it. Their successes and their struggles hold up a mirror to our own modern urban challenges. The echoes of these rooftop cities and fortified towns resonate through time, a quiet legacy woven into the very fabric of later civilizations. While we cannot draw a direct line of kings from Çatalhöyük to Sumer, the intellectual and social groundwork they laid was absolutely essential. These first urbanites were the original innovators, the ones who proved that thousands of people could live together in a permanent, complex society. They pioneered the very concept of specialized labor, where one person could be a full-time potter and another a dedicated builder, a revolutionary idea that freed human creativity and skill. The ambition to undertake a collective, monumental project, whether it was Jericho's great tower or a village's shared defensive wall, was first realized on their watch. These were not just architectural feats, they were social blueprints for how to organize human effort on a grand scale. The practical knowledge they accumulated became a priceless inheritance. The techniques of molding standardized mud bricks, of mixing and applying durable plaster, and of channeling water for both survival and industry were not invented from scratch by the Sumerians or the Egyptians. These were technologies refined over thousands of years in those early experiments. The knowledge was a living library, passed from one generation to the next, slowly perfected through trial and error. It is the deepest foundation stone upon which all later urban centers were built. Perhaps their most profound legacy was more abstract, the development of complex social structures and symbolic communication. They grappled with the fundamental problem of how to maintain order and shared identity among thousands of people without a standing army or a written legal code. Their solutions, whether through powerful shared ideologies, intricate kinship networks, or ritual practices, provided a template. The symbolic language they developed, from the tokens used for accounting to the recurring motifs in their art, was a crucial step toward the abstract thought required for writing and complex administration. How did this knowledge travel across centuries and vast distances? It is unlikely that a merchant from Çatalhöyük walked directly to the site of future and began giving lectures on city planning. The transmission was probably far more subtle and human. As populations shifted and dispersed, perhaps due to climate change or social pressures, they carried with them the memory and knowledge of urban life. A master plasterer might take his family and his skills to a new village. A story about the Great Wall of Jericho would be told and retold around campfires for generations. This dispersed knowledge was a seed bank of social and technological innovation, waiting for the right conditions to sprout again in new forms along the Tigris, the Nile, and beyond. The true legacy of these first planners, therefore, is not found in a continuous royal bloodline, but in the monumental power of a demonstrated possibility. They were the proof of concept for the entire human-urban experiment. They showed all who came after that this challenging, magnificent, and complicated way of life was not just a dream but a viable path forward. Their story is the essential prologue to the epic of civilization we think we know, a forgotten first chapter written not in stone tablets, but in mud, brick, and collective memory. For all we have uncovered, these ancient cities guard their deepest secrets fiercely. The very success of Çatalhöyük presents a paradox that continues to baffle researchers. How could a community of 10,000 people coordinate their lives, manage resources, and build a shared future for nearly 2,000 years without a single palace, a central temple, or any clear sign of a ruling class? We have no grand tombs filled with riches to point to a king, no administrative buildings that suggest a bureaucracy. The political and social engine of this place remains one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. Was it a society of pure consensus, where elders from different family clans met to debate and decide? Or was there a hidden hierarchy, one based on spiritual authority or ancestral lineage that left no obvious architectural trace? The silence on this matter is deafening. Equally mysterious is the Great Stone Tower of Jericho. Rising nearly 9 meters, it was a colossal undertaking for a Neolithic society. But what was its true purpose? The obvious answer is defense, a lookout post to guard against enemies. Yet some scholars point out its position might not have been ideal for pure military function. Could it have served a dual role as both a practical fortification and a powerful social symbol? Perhaps it was a rallying point for the community, a physical manifestation of their collective strength and identity, visible for miles around. Maybe its height had a ritual significance, bringing people closer to the heavens or marking a sacred axis of their world. Without a written record, the tower's true meaning is locked in stone, open to endless interpretation. And what of the people themselves? We can analyze their bones and their tools, but we have no idea what language they spoke. What stories did they tell around their hearths? What names did they give their children? The intricate trade networks that brought obsidian from distant volcanoes and seashells from far-off coasts hint at conversations and agreements we can never hear. How did they resolve a dispute between two families? Was there a council that mediated conflicts, or were matters settled through complex rituals of compensation and reconciliation? The mechanisms of daily justice and collective decision-making have vanished, leaving us with only the quiet aftermath of their long, stable existence. Even the most striking artifacts they left behind resist a single explanation. The vibrant wall paintings at Çatalhöyük, the robust clay figurines, the haunting plastered skulls from Jericho, what ideas were they meant to convey? A figurine might represent a goddess, an ancestor, or a symbol of fertility. A painting of headless figures and vultures could depict a funerary practice, a mythological tale, or a spiritual belief about the journey of the soul. Each interpretation paints a vastly different picture of their worldview. We are left reading a book without an alphabet, trying to decipher a rich symbolic language where all the definitions have been lost. The most thrilling realization is that so much remains undiscovered. The sites we know, like Çatalhöyük and Jericho, might just be the famous exceptions. Archaeologists estimate that dozens, perhaps even hundreds, of other early urban centers are still buried, hidden under the soil of Anatolia, the Levant, and beyond. Each potential discovery holds the power to shatter our current theories. The next excavation could unearth a city that makes Jericho look small, or reveal a form of social organization we have not yet even conceived. This enduring mystery is the engine of archaeology. It is a relentless pursuit, driven by the hope that the next shard of pottery, the next foundation stone, will bring us one step closer to understanding the quiet revolution that gave birth to our world. That plasterer at Çatalhöyük, smoothing the final layer on a wall, could never have imagined us, yet we can almost feel the grit under his nails, sense his pride in a clean, white surface for his family. This is the true power of archaeology, its ability to forge an empathetic bridge across an unimaginable gulf of time. These were not abstract civilizations, they were people. They felt the sharp sting of grief when a child was buried beneath the floor. They knew the weary satisfaction at the end of a harvest. They felt curiosity about the world beyond their rooftops, a curiosity that drew obsidian from distant mountains and shells from unseen seas. Their lives were a complex tapestry of mundane chores and profound moments, woven with the same emotional threads that define our own existence. Consider the lookout standing atop Jericho's great tower, scanning the horizon. Was he gripped by fear, watching for a threat, or was he filled with a sense of awe, looking out over the community he helped protect? These individuals faced the universal human challenges of disease, of scarce resources in a bad year, of the inevitable friction that arises when people live close together. They also gathered, just as we do, to celebrate a successful hunt, to mourn a loss, and to share stories that gave their lives meaning. When we recognize their humanity, history ceases to be a collection of dusty facts and becomes a shared narrative. The vibrant art on their walls was not merely decoration, it was a shout of existence, a declaration that they were here, that their lives and beliefs mattered. Their drive to build a better, more secure world was a gift to their children, a hope for a future they would not live to see. This impulse to create community, to express ourselves, and to seek our place in the cosmos is not a modern invention. It is the bedrock of the human experience. Their story of resilience and ingenuity is, in a very real sense, our own origin story. It began not with pharaohs in golden palaces, but with ordinary people in mud brick houses who dared to imagine a new way of living together. Their enduring legacy is not just a story for the past, but a vital blueprint for our own urban future. The challenges those first city dwellers confronted, from managing dense populations to preserving social bonds, mirror the very crises facing our modern metropolises. We have built towering cities of glass and steel, yet we often struggle with profound isolation and environmental strain. The ancient model of Sattlehiruk, a dense, walkable community where the rooftops served as public squares, presents a powerful alternative to our car-dominated sprawl. Its design forced interaction and fostered a sense of collective identity. principles that urban planners are now desperately trying to reintroduce with pedestrian zones and mixed-use neighborhoods. These early cities wove the sacred into the fabric of daily life, ensuring that meaning and community were not an afterthought, but the foundation of the settlement itself. How many of our own modern housing developments have a soul? The environmental lessons are even more urgent. These ancient societies were exquisitely attuned to their local ecology because their survival depended on it. They positioned their cities at resource-rich borders and engineered sophisticated water systems, yet they also demonstrated a shocking vulnerability to climate shifts and resource depletion. Their eventual decline is a sobering case study in what happens when a society's demands outstrip its environment's capacity. This is not an ancient problem, it is a contemporary warning. We are now the ones facing rising sea levels, extreme weather, and the consequences of having consumed our natural capital. Perhaps the most radical idea these sites offer is a different model of social organization. The potential egalitarianism of Çatalhöyük, without grand palaces or obvious rulers, challenges the very assumption that hierarchy is a necessary cost of complexity. It forces us to ask whether our own urban landscapes, with their stark divides between wealth and poverty, are an inevitable outcome or simply one choice among many. Could we design cities that actively foster greater social equity? Modern planners are looking at these ancient examples for inspiration, exploring how to create communities that are not only resilient and green, but also fundamentally just. The problems of density, resource distribution, and social cohesion are timeless. By studying how the first urban experiments solved them, we gain a deep well of human wisdom. Their successes and failures hold up a mirror, revealing that the ultimate test of a city is not its height or its wealth, but its ability to function as a true home for the human spirit. The next chapter of this story is already being written in laboratories and satellite imaging centers. The frontier of this research is expanding at a breathtaking pace, moving far beyond the famous sites we already know. Future excavations will increasingly turn to lesser-known locations across Anatolia, the Levant, and the vast expanses of the Caucasus Mountains. Archaeologists are no longer digging blindly. They now use predictive modeling, a sophisticated form of digital prospecting that analyzes terrain, water sources, and known settlement patterns to generate a heat map of the most promising places to break ground. This is like having a treasure map for lost cities, drawn by algorithms that can see patterns invisible to the human eye. Perhaps the most tantalizing frontier lies not on land but beneath the sea. During the last ice age, sea levels were dramatically lower. Vast coastal plains that were home to human populations are now submerged. Underwater archaeology, with its remote-operated vehicles and advanced sonar, offers the potential to discover entire settlements lost to the rising waters for thousands of years. These sunken cities could preserve organic materials in incredible detail, offering a perfect time capsule of a world we have never seen. The story will also become more personal than ever through advances in genetic analysis. We will soon be able to trace the migration and mingling of these early urban populations with unprecedented detail. By analyzing ancient DNA, scientists can determine if the people of Çatalhöyük were a single, continuous population or a melting pot of different groups. They can track the movement of a single family line across generations and across hundreds of kilometers, revealing the intimate human networks that connected these first cities. The sheer volume of finds, from millions of pottery shards to countless animal bones, presents another challenge. This is where artificial intelligence is stepping in. Machine learning programs are being trained to recognize and categorize fragments of pottery with a speed and consistency no human team could match. This will free up archaeologists to focus on interpretation, on asking the bigger questions that the data reveals. As one leading researcher in the field predicts, the next 20 years will see us fill in the map of the Neolithic world in ways we can barely imagine today. We are on the verge of moving from studying a handful of spectacular sites to understanding a vast, interconnected landscape of early urban experiments. The story of the first cities is far from complete. It is a narrative still being written, with each core sample from the seafloor and each algorithmic prediction holding a new clue to the origins of our urban world. Our journey ends where it began, with a question that now echoes far deeper. From the rooftop pathways of Çatalhöyük to the stone tower of Jericho, we have walked alongside the ghosts of the first city planners. They were not primitive villagers, but visionary communities who independently unlocked the secrets of urban life thousands of years before the pyramids. Their legacy is a mosaic of human ingenuity, a story written in mud, brick, and collective ambition that stretches from the Balkans to the coast of Peru. This is not a forgotten prologue, but a central chapter in the human story, one that redefines civilization itself. The evidence compels us to see our past not as a single thread leading to a few famous empires, but as a rich tapestry of experiments in how to live together. These societies mastered sophisticated technologies, nurtured complex economies, and forged powerful social bonds without the kings and emperors we so often associate with grand achievements. Their world challenges our deepest assumptions about progress and hierarchy, revealing a past brimming with alternative paths. While countless mysteries remain buried, one truth is undeniable. The human impulse to build, to cooperate on a grand scale, and to create a shared home is a fundamental part of who we are. It is a story of resilience that belongs to all of us. We would love to hear which of these ancient cities captured your imagination. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you are ready for more journeys into the deepest mysteries of our past, be sure to